Hello. Hello, everybody. I was a bit keen there, Michelle. I even came in before the intro. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Native Paranormal Crossroads. It's really great to be back here with the guides. This is episode 18. I can't believe you guys have done that many. And there's always so much to talk about, always so much of interest. So, just introducing again Michelle Miners, Stan Milford, and Jonathan Dover, who is somewhere there. He is with us. So these guys are the Paranormal Rangers, and if you've been watching, you'll know that both John and Stan were law enforcement officers on the Navajo reservation. For I think Stan, they've both been in that for about 20 odd years, haven't you, Stan? Something like that.
About 23, little over 23 years, I
Yeah,
think, for me.
yeah.
And
So,
and
and
much.
then Michelle is also a ranger. So they all love to talk anything paranormal. They've all had some really incredible and fascinating experiences with the paranormal. And we know the paranormal can go from anything from UFOs to Bigfoot to so on. But tonight we're going to start with UFOs because Jonathan has recently been to Sedona. So if you can hear us, John, can you tell us something about your experiences in Sedona?
Well, we went down to shoot an episode for a TV show, and while we were there, we went out with a woman named Marlene, who's attached with Sedona MUFON, and she took us out at night, and we stayed out till 2 in the morning. We were looking toward the north, and we're watching UFOs appear from behind the mountains at a place called Secret Mesa, and there were a bunch of them. Must have been about 30 of them altogether over a period of time, and we watched them fly off to the northeast. Um, and there were helicopters with them flying around too. And we were told that the flash pattern was military in origin.
Mm-hmm.
So the helicopters are hovering. They were going the same direction as the UFOs. Some of the UFOs would get brighter and go up and disappear. So quite the experience.
Hey,
Were
John.
they all... Go on, Stan.
John, when you say
Yeah.
UFOs, can you give us a description of what you're seeing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we were using PVS-7 night vision equipment, and what we actually saw were we were looking at satellites earlier and tracking them across the sky. Uh, at about 10 p.m. to 11 p.m., there is no longer the light terminator to reflect off satellites, so you can't see them anymore. And so these objects were just little balls of light. They look like large satellites, and they were moving at different altitudes in different directions on the horizon, coming out from behind the mountain there. And they were self-illuminated because there's no light to reflect off of them from the sun.
John, is that similar to the UFO you and I witnessed on the San Juan River that was zigzagging?
Well, we did see one UFO that was zigzagging,
Oh,
and
really?
we
Wow.
saw a couple of them that were almost like swimming, like tadpoles would.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when they would get bright, they would turn an amber color. and we were told that that's an effect of the plasma when they power up to get more energy.
Hey, John,
Wow.
did you catch footage of that with cameras or personal cell phones or anything like that? Because if you did, blow up those pictures with your finger and then you can see the plasma. It's kind of an interesting picture if you captured anything like that. If the plasma was, if you were seeing those certain colors, you might have captured some type of entity with
We
that
didn't
craft.
we didn't use our cell phones.
Okay,
Um, they it, at 2 in the morning, it's pretty dark.
right.
We couldn't even see to walk around where we were,
Okay,
and and then I don't think a cell phone would have picked it up. Maybe in a exposure, a long exposure, would have you would have seen them tracking. But yeah, we just watched them with the night vision. There were about 8 of us all together.
okay. Did they come to you at any point? Was there any type of like communication between the members of your party? Did they come forward or back or anything? Was anybody getting any kind of message within their minds?
Uh, we had one person that was there that kept asking it to get brighter or flash us,
Right.
and occasionally one would flash.
Okay. Oh, we seem to have lost
Oh,
connection.
he could come back soon,
Come
or
back.
not. Hopefully, yes. Hopefully,
Some,
you'll regain connection. So,
something
is
might have
Sedona
not wanted him to talk about the flashing.
Exactly. They don't want to reveal themselves. Yeah, on our
so,
show.
guys? You'll know it's not unusual, is it, to have UFO sightings in Sedona itself?
Um, from what I've done quite a bit of research uh, regarding Sedona and that region, uh, going into parts of my book.
Mm.
Um, as you may know, there were some references that I had written regarding Clifford Mahooty,
Mm-hmm.
who was from the Camp Verde area down in that region, and he was very very familiar with the Sedona area, and it seems uh, like areas of, let's say, up in Vernal, Utah, the Skinwalker Ranch or Sherman Ranch, um, that there is a history going quite a ways back of people having witnessed different types of phenomena. So um, there's a multitude of phenomenon that people witness when they're there in Sedona. There's areas that are known hot spots within that community or region. There are locations uh, like one of the ranches out there in Sedona that has a history of government personnel occupying that area, and and it being basically fenced and kept. The public is kept out, and similar to what you've seen at places like Skinwalker Ranch and stuff. So it's quite intriguing. It's very unique. Excuse me.
John's back with us. He
Yeah, sorry about that. My phone got a little hot. Had it plugged in, and
Okay.
no worries,
it
no
says
worries.
yeah. So anyway, what was the last thing you heard me say?
You were talking about an individual who was trying to communicate to
to
Yeah,
get brighter.
And yeah.
yeah, that guy would ask it to get brighter and flash us, and
Mhm.
every now and then one of them would,
Okay.
and it was quite the show to watch because you heard everybody else go ooh ah, you know. So he was giving us a command performance there.
Mm.
How many do you think there were, John?
Well, the first time we sat out at one location, uh, we probably we saw scads of satellites, and up on the horizon we saw what we thought were UFOs, but um, we couldn't say definitively. But they were coming from that area. So we upstaked around 10 o'clock and went to a higher location. And at that higher location, that's when we saw everything taking place. And this is when they told us that um, astronomers were saying that you cannot see the reflection on the satellites anymore, and we didn't. We didn't see any satellites. Um, so, and then these things were showing up. So, there we saw probably 30 to 40 of them um, just coming out of this one little area.
So, John, I have a question. So, the individuals that were with you, do you feel like there was a gathering of consciousness in regards to wanting to see this phenomena event that you had with the MUFON individuals? And do you feel like there was a collective consciousness of willing participants wanting to view an event as such that you had the experience with last night?
Yeah, I don't think, I don't see how there couldn't be. It was
Mm.
just, everybody had this shared vision and idea that we would see UFOs, and there was a lot of positivity there. That's what I noticed, and everybody sat back. They did have laser pointers, but none of them were ever used to point directly at the craft.
It's really interesting. We've had such similar experiences up in the Uinta Basin while I was at an event last year. It was actually a barbecue event. And the evening, of course, we all, we're all experiencers. And I believe we had consciousness awareness. And what we saw in the northern sky were aircraft as well. But what was really interesting about that aircraft was all of a sudden, a light there were two aircrafts and all of a sudden light exchanged between them, and someone had made a comment, looks like they're having a laser fight.
Yeah,
So we're
one
having
of the
Star.
things that I thought was just amazing
Mm-hmm,
was the number of helicopters that were flying.
mm-hmm,
Now, Marlene has talked with former military aviators, and they have told her that when you see a flashing, you know, commercial aircraft have a certain flash pattern.
okay.
And she was saying that when you see a strobe flashing 3 times in a row, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that, that
Mm-hmm.
she was told that these were possibly military helicopters in origin. And that's what we saw out there with these objects. They would fly in front of them, in back of them, on top of them, just at random intervals. And I don't know if any of the audience has ever had a chance to be in a lot of those military type helicopters. I have. And when you're in a helicopter, they tell me it's just for a little bird, one of those LOH type light
Mm-hmm.
observation helicopters. They say that um, those are running about $600 an hour in just in fuel. Um, that they're rather expensive. They use Jet A fuel, and and then to hover them really puts a strain on the engine. And pilots do not like to hover their craft because when they do, it cuts down on the life expectancy and they have to replace the engine sooner. In our case, we saw helicopters hovering. These were, as near as we could tell, large military type, Blackhawks or Hueys or whatever they're using. And uh, they were flying continuously, and there's no airports nearby.
Right. So, do you believe that
So
this incident was maybe a military operation using modern day technology? Because today our subject is cutting edge technology and captivating discussions exploring the mysteries of consciousness. And you guys were the consciousness part, but you were witnessing probably cutting edge technology. Do you feel that was the case in your experience with the MUFON members?
um, the jury is still out on whether these are uh, reverse engineered craft that we have. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I did come up with a plausible explanation for the helicopter activity. We think that the helicopters were there because the military could have a sense of plausible deniability to say that, well, you know, there were UFOs, but we had an operation going, a maneuver, and we had military helicopters in that area, so that's probably what people saw.
Hey, John, do you think this was a particular event that you were witnessing, or do you think this is something that's going on nightly?
They told us that this stuff goes on nightly, and in one case, they actually, over the houses there where people live, they had a, uh, a triangle-shaped craft fly over rather low that didn't make a sound.
You know, in my experiences with the triangulated aircraft, it's been said that those are manufactured by our own U.S. military. And, you know, there's certain technologies. Don't quote me on that, but I've heard that from others.
I did have
Well,
one of
go
my
ahead.
nephews um, just a couple of nights ago coming back from Albuquerque.
Mm-hmm.
After it had gotten dark, he witnessed one of these triangle shaped craft,
Mm-hmm.
and he's in and around his 30 years old, you know, so he's not real young. I mean, but he witnessed this, and it seemed like in what he conveyed with that, it was pretty. I wouldn't say traumatizing, but it was pretty enlightening to actually witnessing this craft. And there was also later on there was a really bright yellow orb that was witnessed
Right.
after that sighting.
So, if this is a fairly common occurrence in Sedona, what is it about the consciousness there, guys? Or what is it about the energy of the land there? I mean, if these are UFOs coming in, are they coming into? Do they sort of refuel from our energy lines in these places? That's one thing I've heard before. Or is
It's
it
a
about
Well,
the
one of the
consciousness of
things,
the land?
it Sedona is a very high consciousness area where a lot back in the I guess the 2000 or 90s, it was considered a new age movement
Hmm.
area where consciousness was um, amongst a lot of people, and they were known as tree huggers, so on and so forth, that, you know, were trying to make contacts with entities, so on and so forth. And it's a spiritual place, a blessed place. The land is, you know, full of Native American lore, so on. And so there's a lot to that area, and there's a lot of people who have come who are spiritually in tune. And also, they talk about the vortex phenomena that exists there.
I think that the fact that there are people from the outside traveling to Sedona, because it's actually a place now, just like what Michelle had mentioned. People, that's a destination. People go there for those experiences, whether it's to see UFOs or have some type of enlightenment experience in the locations. Um, so I think when when you have a community, not only a community, but people traveling there, and that collective energy there, that may or may not be kind of like-minded in their being there, that it results in um, it results in, I think, more experiences from like what John experienced with the
Mm.
UFOs and stuff like that. So it kind of it's amplifies things by all of these people coming to that location.
Well, as you can recall, Stan and Jonathan, the Phoenix Light incident that occurred there, and there were, I mean, the entire city of Phoenix and that area witnessed this phenomena similar to what John's talking about, but it became a national headline. And so I feel like John and them, if there is this military exercise going on, are are they terrestrial or extraterrestrial?
Mhm.
That's a question we need to ask.
Well, I think that, you know, given that location again, given the different types of phenomenon, uh, that you're going to get a wide range of of different types of beings and energies. Uh, it could be interdimensional. It can be a lot of different things, from a lot of different other places. So um, I don't think it's just one particular source.
And of course, we don't know if the people weren't there, whether the UFOs would be there, do we? Because you'd need the
True,
people to see the UFOs. So
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
But
is it the
if you,
people creating that consciousness, or is it the area? Is it a combination of both?
well, I think that if you look at pictographs and petroglyphs in this region, it suggests that there has been contact with different types of entities or beings a long, long, long time. So
Mhm.
um, even in a place like Sedona, there may have been UFO activity long before that place even began being inhabited.
Mhm.
So
So are you talking about the ancient
Oh, we can
influence?
see John now.
There he is. So
There
Stan,
he
are you
is. Hi,
referring to
John.
the ancient dwellings of the Native Americans or the Fremonts or
well,
prehistoric
um,
life
I
before?
think Sedona, um, maybe there is energies that were already there, uh, without human activity
Mm.
occupying that place. Maybe there's a natural source of different types of energies in that location that's drawn UFO activity to that particular location. And now man comes along and becomes aware of that special location and is drawn to it and has these experiences, these interactions with different entities and different beings from maybe from other dimensions.
Right.
Because I know Andrew's spoken before about ships charging up from old volcanoes and places like that.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
right.
possibly a place where they can charge up as well.
In one of the cases John and I did, one of the people involved in that case was witnessing UFOs, as he described, flying into the mesa, actually flying into that particular mesa, not around it, not behind it, not,
Mm.
actually into the mesa, physical mesa itself. Kind of
Oh,
like what you hear about Dulce,
Yeah.
Dulce, New Mexico.
what's the Sedona vortex you mentioned just now, Michelle?
I think it's a consciousness level,
Mm.
where there are access points to Earth dimensions that you can access through consciousness. I think that's a hot spot in Sedona. It also resides up in the Uinta Basin, where I've done a lot of investigations. Here up in immigration, we had similar experience that John had, where a group of us, we had a former FBI individual with us who brought us to a hill with several of us people, and we saw maneuvers. What was really not interesting was there was no helicopters. And
Mm.
I think I've told the story before. About 200 feet away from me, there was a hovering craft with a glowing greenish light. And so, you kind of wonder, is it them or is it us? So, and I've heard even scientists say that, it could be, we can't tell anymore. It could be either,
Yeah.
they're working together. And so, but I've heard from individuals who live in that area of Sedona that there's an awareness of consciousness that opens up these vortexes.
Hmm. So, like an Earth and people technology.
And
Yeah.
Well, there appears to be, we look at this and we try to examine it
mhm,
scientifically, but there appears to be a whole nother component to it that's missing, and that's a
right.
spiritual side.
Mm.
And I think that's why Native Americans see these things more often, because there is that spiritual component. It's part of their culture. Whereas everybody else says, well, we have to be strictly scientific. We can't allow any religious belief or any kind of belief in there. It has to be rigorously
Mm.
scientific, and they miss that aspect um, of the whole
Mm.
phenomenon.
And they're your star brothers and sisters, aren't they, to you? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they are. They came to teach us, give us wisdom, and teach us how to live, and we don't listen. And so, we still steal, we still fight, we still kill, and have wars, and it's just, it's amazing. I personally, my feeling, what all this is telling me is that we've had civilizations in the past that have gone
Mm.
extinct, basically, and started over.
Oh
Oh,
dear.
him again. Yes. I just picking up from.
Um,
Oh,
I
there
Oh,
he
think
there
is.
that
he is.
has a
We
lot to
lost you
do
for
with
a
it,
moment, John.
and you have this universal. Is everybody still there? I
You're
think I
still
You're
with us.
froze
breaking
up
up,
here.
John.
I think he's okay. John, you're okay. Just keep talking.
You might get a.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
I was going to say without his video, he might get a better reception.
okay. He's trying. I'm sorry. We're going to have some technical difficulties with him
Yeah.
on the road. Hi, John, again.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody
I.
tried to call me and my phone froze up.
Oh no.
Okay.
Laura and guys, I do believe we have the DNA within us, and
Hmm.
those are the markers of the star children that are existing here. We're star people. I come from that tribe, the Pawnee, Skidee, holding the star charts. These gentlemen too have that DNA. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, there have been scientific evidence of mitochondria cot, to whom people have. particular DNA to the extraterrestrial population.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely. And isn't this where the term star, didn't we discuss this before, where the term starseed actually comes from?
right.
Yeah, yeah,
It's very encapsulating.
yeah, yeah. So tell me about this cutting edge technology that you put in the title today. What were you thinking of?
Jonathan, I think said it earlier. There is a propulsion aspect to these technologies some of them may be running on maybe some kind of fuel that's unknown to us. Propulsion, using water or atmospheric air. When I was on Blind Frog Ranch, Dwayne Ollinger describes this propulsion method that they can control their ships by moisture. That's why they usually hide within the cloud system, is because they can control the element in such a way.
Mm.
I'm
This,
I'm hearing also that you know in the past we have viewed these craft being operated by different types of entity and stuff, but I'm hearing more recently that these craft are actually have a consciousness of themselves. That
Mm-hmm.
the craft, it's not like the military or civilian craft we have, where it's a means of transportation that is mechanically created, and we get in there and we travel, and it's not like that. It's the craft itself has its own consciousness.
it
So,
could probably change shape with that consciousness as well.
well, I just imagine as Stan was talking, because I've heard that too. That was,
Mm.
the next thing I was going to get into is, you've got propulsion, and and from an Earth standing point, we haven't developed either laser technology or whatever. And he's talking. So I heard from a really well-known scientist that consciousness, we could start, get a crystal computer and actually put your fingertips on the joystick and control the consciousness of, actually heard that, that you can control the direction because your mind's telling it. We are electricity ourselves. We're that
Yeah.
energy. That's what Stan is referring to. And I've heard that they
Well,
have that.
here's another thing to think about um, for our audience out there. Those craft may not actually be propelled.
Okay.
We use bully brute force to force us through the air,
Mm.
and to push us. And even with our rockets, we use solid fuel rocket and liquid fuel rockets to push us.
Right.
What if these craft are impelled? What if you were to pick a point somewhere, and it's almost like you have a imaginary string attached to it, and you pull yourself toward it with no friction and nothing there to hold you back. Um, it would be like floating on air, um, like a hovercraft. You'd be free to move in any direction. And I know that Bob Lazar has talked about that the theory that the craft may be impelled, and there's others that have talked about it. Um, we tend to think in our own scientific terms, and we think about the things that we know about. These craft, the reason we might not see a lot of the technology is that we still don't understand it.
Right.
We
Yeah.
we we could be, if you went up to an earthworm and said, "Here's a digital watch. Let me explain to you how it works and that I'm going to give you one. And they don't know what the heck you're talking about. There's no possible way. Oh, great. I just had an 18-wheeler pull up next to me and park.
Oh,
At least they shut off the engine. It's uh, it's it's a one of those vehicles that sell the soda pops.
Yeah.
So, like they say on reservation dogs, white man's bullets.
You know, Jonathan, it's really interesting. When I caught a photo up in the Uinta Basin with a group of people of 18, we were up there filming. We had similar experience. I caught on my cell phone, and so does other. And I told him to blow up the picture, and within itself laid an entity. It looked like a face of a lion, and then we caught a little guy in. And one thing they said that was cutting edge, I had heard from a scientist who reviewed those photos, is maybe they don't need aircraft, that it's done by being able to shift from one dimension to another by means of, like you said, consciousness or getting from one place to the another. But for us to view it in a mechanical or having this protective thing that encapsulate that, protecting them from our environment is too dense. And that's what I was told. That's another story, a long story. When we had that sort of event that you had where we had people and in the comments where we no, we can't come by because or come closer to you guys is because of the radiation factor and your air is too dense for us. So, I've heard different theories that way.
Well,
It's
this idea of entities, aliens, if you would. Um, we have this idea that there's only one or maybe three Nordics, reptilians, and grays.
mhm.
Um, the possibilities are that there could be hundreds of different species,
Yeah.
all coming here for different reasons. And,
I think it would be on beyond hundreds. We're talking about
mm.
an infinite number of galaxies, uh, and then you add in multi dimensions that could be repeated. You know, it could be endless. So to put a number like that, I think it's far beyond what we can ever remotely imagine.
Yeah,
right.
Clifford Stone, Sergeant Clifford Stone said that he when he was working up Area 51, they um, identified 64 species, and it's his stuff is out in public. He's now since gone. A good friend of mine, so he
Yes.
identified
So
64 species.
there's a lot more than meets the eye, a lot of different types of technology, um, things that we're just barely starting to even comprehend, much less be able to engineer ourselves. And if you think about it, just 100 years ago, scientists were saying that we couldn't fly.
Yeah.
Before the Wright brothers, they actually had massive debates on the subject
Right.
and said man cannot fly. It's impossible. And look at us today. We think we're pretty cool because we got a rocket ship.
We're still rolling around on wheels.
Yeah, we
Mm.
got train. We still got training wheels, and
Mm.
someday we'll get to that point. But I think there's a lot more to the technology than meets the eye, and even speaking about eyes, even our vision is limited. We on one side you can't see into the X-ray spectrum, on the other side you can't see into the infrared spectrum, and our vision is just like this, so narrow
Mm.
that and if we were to see into all these other um, areas, who knows what we'd see.
Well, also, if we were to be able to connect with our other multidimensional selves who could be in these other dimensions, then we would be downloading much more of those abilities that you're talking about. But the talking about the ships being driven by like a consciousness drive is something that we can sort of understand, isn't it?
Hmm.
It is something you can get your head round,
If
and
you
maybe.
do if you do remote viewing,
Mm,
you're already consciously traveling.
mm,
So we haven't, really got that far in it, but it's there.
yes,
And
yeah,
not only that, dreams. When we sleep at night, REM sleep, we don't know if there isn't some type of connection between our dreams and reality of what's out there, and traveling and uh, time and dimension and all of that. We don't
yeah.
know.
And it's all in our DNA anyway, just really waiting for us to unpack it when we're ready, as
Well,
we raise in consciousness.
I don't think we're ready
Mm,
because we still war, we still commit crimes. Uh, we are a violent species,
mm,
and I say violent with a capital V.
mm.
You know, all of us, our people have survived. Literal genocide,
If we go
Yeah,
and
back in ancient history, John, we can talk about, the Lemurians and the Atlanteans. They got so technologically advanced that they ended up destroying themselves.
yeah,
right, and we're headed in the same direction.
Right.
And I
yeah.
think the lesson is not all this fancy technology. I think the lesson is individually we need to examine ourselves
Mm.
and be the person that we were meant to be spiritually and physically. Um,
Yeah.
and that's hard to wrap your head around because we don't like to change. You know,
Not
we,
only
we
that, mankind is so focused in materialism, and
Absolutely.
and gain and wealth and all of these other things that we can't see beyond that. It seems, a
Well,
lot of the
it is
time.
an instant gratification world, isn't it? But it's people
Mhm.
like you three out there, the team that I work with from Galactic History, and many, many other people putting out these sort of high frequency broadcasts to maybe just nudge people into um, taking care of themselves in the way that they overwrite some of the traumas that within them, because we're all carrying generational traumas and so on. I mean, you three understand all about that.
Mhm.
And actually finding their own sovereignty, that's a lot of what Andrew and myself teach. So when we can do that, and if you can get individuals to start looking at themselves, like you're saying, John, and they can get rid of some of these programs that are running them, get out of this instant gratification, and start getting more spiritually connected, if you like, connected with Earth Mother's energies, which is what you three are talking about as well, then there is an opportunity for people to raise their consciousness. And I think when they do that, they can start, they sort of go into another frequency where war and hurting other people and so on just doesn't resonate with that growing consciousness, but it's for each individual to do on their own, and
You know,
that's the journey, isn't it?
yeah, Laura, it's really interesting. I'm always hearing from a consciousness, spiritual level that we're dumbed down. The human
Mm,
DNA has been dumbed down.
yes,
Our,
yeah.
our higher self is what we call it today. When
Mm,
we're in our higher self, we get messages, we get higher ways of living, we're clear in our minds and such. And I call it consciousness arrogance in the world we're living today because everybody wants us to be like each other, and we're all
yeah,
individual and we all
yeah,
have individual DNA, and we need to come to understanding of our own selves, and within our own, each of us have different gifts, and then one person isn't better than the other. So if we get
exactly.
out of consciousness arrogance, then we would get into consciousness spirituality.
Yeah, and that we have to avoid that superior thing about the different levels, if you want, of
Mhm.
spirituality. Because I don't believe everybody at this time can wake up. I know certain people who probably will not wake up just addressing what somebody's put in the chat there. But I think it's each individual's journey. And I know us four here and many others have taken on that responsibility where we're awake. But it's more than just being awake and being conscious and aware. It's what you're actually going to do with all that to make the world a better place, through through healing yourself, through the self-healing that all three of us are doing, all four of us are doing, and again, many more people are doing.
Well, one of the things I think the Rangers want to make a point is get out of the fear mode. And this is the reason why we have this podcast, is just to let people know, stay out of the fear.
Yes.
Yeah, fear tends to control us.
Mhm.
And, if you turn on the news, you see stories that will amplify that fear. So and
Yes.
so got robbed, so and so got shot, so and so got murdered over here, and it's just a continuous barrage of negative
Yes.
stuff. And, I watch the news, I stay up on all the different stuff, but I don't take it to heart. Um,
Well,
I,
it's like what's going on in Cuba with the Russia doing the military exercises there. The thing is, Russia, they probably carry out those exercises just like we do in Taiwan every single year. It's it's a part of our world today, and these superpowers and the way they carry on. But people, I mean, the news feeds upon that, like John said, like a feeding frenzy of sharks,
Mhm.
in trying to sell uh, uh, that fear-based information. And the sad thing is, our a lot of the community and people, they jump right on it. They jump right into that kind of uh, you know behavior related to that. But it
Well,
makes no
so much
sense.
of it is a distraction, isn't it, from
Mhm.
finding our own spirituality and focusing on
Well, it
our own
is.
self-healing.
It
Yeah.
is. And
well,
maybe
there,
collectively the governments don't want people to have that awakening, and that maybe they don't
No,
want that.
I
there's an
don't think
old
they'd be in
saying.
control.
There's an old saying that says, "Be meek as lambs, but be
Mm.
wise as serpents." And on the one hand, yeah, we can be educated, we can know what's going on politically and everything else in the world, but we try not to let that affect us.
Mm.
And the whole thing is you're not there to impress anybody. Anything that you do, you know, several years after you're dead and gone, nobody's really going to remember,
Mm.
you know, and yet we're trying so hard to please other people.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We get into relationships because we think that other people need us, and
Yeah.
it's the other way around. We need other people,
Mm.
and so the whole thing all goes back to, who are you?
Yeah.
Who is the best person you can be?
Mm.
And once you get there, and it's an ongoing journey. You're never going to really get to the pinnacle. It's the journey that's important.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Well, when you have these existential type of experiences and you start to share with those who may have not had the same experiences, they become fearful that you're a different person. You're not like them. They're afraid of the fear, even of the spiritual levels that you're attaining. And I've encountered that in being in this area with the ufology and the phenomena, and seeing, these things that we have experienced and witnessed. John could go out there and tell of his experience to somebody who has never had one, and then he could be, ridiculed for what he saw. So, and that's what, from the line of Dune, fear is the mind killer. What we think is what we put out, and it's who we are. And so, yeah.
Well, the global narrative is not supporting like individuals like us who sort of go out and see these things or believe in these things and then come on and talk about these things. The global narrative is always trying to cover up, isn't it, and hide anything that's any different than the narrative that they're putting out, and that is the constant battle. But I think, I mean, wasn't there UFO disclosure in the US a couple of years ago?
Well, I think that the government is having to um, admit certain
Mm,
things, but they're not going to fully disclose anything.
mm,
Uh, from a historical standpoint, our government has never been straight up with us.
no.
We
Well,
got involved in wars because of misinformation. They
Yeah.
Mm,
said, "Oh, the Lusitania, it got torpedoed and went down, and all these civilians died." Well, they didn't find out till the early 2000s that Lusitania was actually carrying arms and munitions to Britain, which is in violation of being a civilian liner.
mm,
Um, so there's all kinds of things. The Spanish American War, we said, oh, the battleship was blown up in the Bay of Cuba. They found out later, oh, gee, that was our own fault. Um, you know,
Mhm.
so things like that happen all the time, but we use it for our own political reasons,
Right.
and it's sad. It's a sad commentary. Um, so you can't fully trust government to make the decisions that are best for you.
mm,
You have to make your own decisions. And if you live a life in fear, if you live a life in conflict, um, that's not the way to live. You'll get ulcers, you'll get high blood pressure, um, your liver damage from drinking too much, because we drink to forget. And
mm.
and um, and then what do? We act like nothing's wrong. How are you doing? Oh yeah, I'm great, fine, fine. And you're not. But that's the front, that's the face that you put on yourself for other people. And when you get to a point where you start looking at yourself and saying, what can I improve? Where can I? And don't be so open minded your brain falls out. But I'm open minded enough that I decide what I'm going to put in my brain. And I'll rigorously analyze what's going to go in there and compare it and do the research on it and everything else before I try something. Um, so it's just a disciplined way of life
Mhm.
that everybody can achieve. It's just a matter of taking those steps.
this thing with disclosure by the government, Michelle and I got into a discussion about this. Indigenous people don't sit around waiting for the government to give us this thing called
Yeah.
disclosure. We've known, and I mean, again, you go back and you look at pictographs and petroglyphs and the evidence there. Our peoples have known that these things have existed for thousands and maybe millions of years.
Right.
Uh, we're not sitting around waiting for the government to give us a little treat, like a little lap dog, oh, we're going to give you this disclosure maybe one of these days, and that ain't happening. Indigenous people and Native peoples, First Nations people, people from Mexico, uh, around the globe, we've known these things have existed for thousands of years. And John and I, in the small time frame that John and I did the investigations under special projects and or working for the Navajo Rangers at that time, we seen these things, we experienced it firsthand. repeatedly we investigated cases that involved all sorts of paranormal phenomenon and supernatural phenomena. We know that it exists. We don't
Yeah.
have to sit around waiting for someone to give us, this gift of disclosure. That's ridiculous.
Well,
Yeah.
Stan, you're correct. In our creation stories, every tribe has their own creation story, and very much so, the creation story has their own gods. And those gods came from the skies, and they came from galaxies within our own, you know, galaxies above us, and the skies were heavenly skies. And that's where the answers came from, these powerful beings that we looked up to. So the creation story reiterates that to the tribes. Everybody has their different creative stories. And, what I love about having Judy on the show the last couple of times we were with her was when she's talking about Bigfoot being an extension of their tribe, another sister family. And that to me relaxed me enough that the Bigfoot are a part of us. They're just another extension of a family.
Well, not only that, I just
See, all
thought of
of
this.
this, what Stan was saying as well, what you've just said, it's all things that it's actually in your knowingness, isn't it? It's
Mm-hmm.
within you, it's within your DNA, you know it. Like you say, you don't need any government confirmation of something that is already innate in you.
Right.
It's already there.
Well, these things like Bigfoot, what if human beings in our dimension, what if we are, as you and I are seeing each other today, one person has brown hair, long hair, some has gray hair like me. What if when we cross over to another dimension, what if we're actually like Bigfoot? What if in our appearance, what if in our appearance on the other side, we're like these beings once we step over? We don't know.
No.
We don't know.
I like that.
I mean, maybe once you cross that barrier, you've seen these science fiction where there's like a portal or gateway, and it's like water, and you put your hand through it, and maybe when we do that, maybe on the other side we're like a Bigfoot. Who knows? We don't know
Or
that.
some other type of monster. Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Or some other, maybe the extraterrestrial beings. Maybe once we cross that threshold, that's our appearance. Maybe that's how we look. If us as a being, once we cross that threshold, we don't know.
We could be the giants to the little people.
We
That's
certainly
right.
could. We
Yes.
certainly could. Maybe they're no different than us. Maybe they are us. That's on just in
different
within some other
timeline.
dimension. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe our form changes once we cross some type of threshold.
I think
We
that's
don't
why
know.
consciousness is so important, because I think we can, the higher we developed and evolve, that these doors can be open to us so we can go visit the relatives, and have that capacity within ourselves. But we're so limited in this body, and those other factors of fear and arrogance and greed, so on, keep us limited. That's where I was talking about the dumbing down of
Yeah.
humanity. That's where it occurs.
Yeah. Yeah. Where it's
Maybe
in the
we're very, very primitive where we're at in our world and dimension. But again, once you cross over, maybe you're like these beings that are so beyond intellectually developed, once you cross that threshold. We don't know.
well, I think it's like we said before, isn't it? When you grow in consciousness, then more things are available to you from the other dimensions.
Right.
Like
Right.
you've all seen Bigfoot. Yeah, so just things like that. I think things possibly become clearer, don't they? Or maybe they just become more confusing. Maybe it gives you more questions than answers again as you grow in consciousness. But there's only one way to go, isn't it? We've got to evolve. We've
Yeah.
got to evolve
Well,
away from what John was saying for war and so on.
when you see a Bigfoot, when people witness a Bigfoot, there isn't that material element to them. I mean, they're not packing bags and wearing jewelry and
and
watches and
and
all of these
driving
things. They're
motorhomes.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
My
they're
camping gear.
they're in their
You
natural
don't
state. I mean,
you don't
Yeah.
see gold jewelry and
no, you don't.
sunglasses, Ray-Bans.
Yeah,
Race cars.
no.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Uh,
I don't know. It's something to think about.
Yeah.
yeah. What a great conversation, guys. We're the top of the hour. Did you want to bring up anything else, Michelle, guys, while we're here?
We'd love to increase our membership. We'd love to have you come aboard and be a part of our membership base and to come on and we'll discover more together as the Paranormal Rangers will share more stories and experience within the membership page.
I
Yeah, it would be really
appreciate
good if you could support these guys.
the comments that people make. I think that some of the things that people bring up and suggest are food for future podcasts that we have,
Absolutely.
and I appreciate that very much. So
Yeah,
Wonderful.
and again, we thank you for your support, for listening to us just babble on and on, and through a lot of your support, believe it or not, Stan's book is actually doing really well in the pre-sales, and so we want to thank each one of you personally that have ordered the book, and the rest of you can get on the wagon anytime you want. But there's it's going well.
thank you.
That's great news. So, Michelle, how can people sign up for your membership?
They can go on to our website, theparanormalrangers.com, and explore the membership page and sign up.
Fabulous. And if people could like and subscribe as well, you're on Facebook. And if they could share anything, that would be wonderful, because the wisdom these guys has needs to be out there in the world. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Anything else, guys, before we go?
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Michelle. Thanks, John. Thank you.
And just remember,
everybody.
we're the best of the best of the best with honors.
Absolutely. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Michelle. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.